In a country, there was a poor cobbler. Although poor, the cobbler was very hardworking and honest. The poor man could not change his fate in any way, even after working hard. Day by day, he was becoming poorer and poorer. Finally, the situation was so miserable that the cobbler did not even have the money to buy leather to make shoes. With the little leather he had, it was possible to make a single pair of shoes. What else could he do? The next morning, intending to make a single-footed shoe, the cobbler sat down towards evening and cut the leather to size. Then, with a calm mind, he prayed to God and went to bed to sleep. The next morning, after the morning prayer, the cobbler sat down to make shoes and saw a perfectly made pair of shoes on his table. The cobbler was shocked to see the pair of shoes. Nothing came out of his mouth. He took the pair of shoes in his hand and examined them very carefully. The stitching of the shoes was so exquisite. There was not a single flaw. The cobbler had never seen such wonderfully made shoes before. In no time, a buyer came to the cobbler's shop. He liked the pair of shoes very much. The buyer bought the pair of shoes at a very good price. With the money he had earned from selling the shoes, the cobbler bought 2 more pairs of shoes with leather. With double enthusiasm, he cut 2 pairs of shoes at night and left them. Even if the cobbler had not gone to the trouble of cutting the leather, it seemed that it would have worked, because the next morning, when he woke up, he found 2 pairs of shoes ready on his work table. The buyer also seemed to be in no mood to buy the shoes. In a short time, the 2 pairs of shoes were sold at double the price. This time, the cobbler bought leather for 4 pairs of shoes with that money. The next morning, the cobbler saw the same thing happen. 4 pairs of shoes were ready for sale on his table. This strange thing continued day after day. Every evening, the cobbler would cut out pieces of leather to make shoes. And in the morning, he would find ready-made shoes on the table. Soon, the cobbler's poverty began to disappear, and his fortunes began to improve. Eventually, the cobbler became quite wealthy. Meanwhile, Christmas was not far away. Shopping and festivities for the Christmas festival had begun all around. One such evening, before going to bed after cutting out the leather for the shoes, the cobbler said to his wife, "Well, what if we don't sleep tonight and see who helps us make our shoes?" The cobbler's wife took her husband's words to heart, curious to see who would help them. The cobbler and the cobbler's wife lit a candle and sat down behind the clothes hanging on the hanger. When midnight came, the cobbler and his wife saw 2 tiny angels come out of nowhere and sit at the cobbler's shoemaking table, busy sewing the shoes they had cut. The 2 dwarfs were completely naked. They didn't even have a thread on their body. They were sewing the shoes with their tiny fingers, hammering nails, etc. So quickly that the cobbler's eyes widened. Without blinking, the cobbler and his wife, amazed, began to watch the 2 dwarfs secretly. The 2 dwarfs worked tirelessly on the shoes, arranged the shoes on the table, and disappeared as quickly as they had appeared at a feast. The next morning, the cobbler's wife said to her husband, "We have recovered because of the 2 little dwarfs. We must thank them for that." They left in a hurry. "You have noticed that they have no clothes on. The poor things suffer so much in the cold. Listen to what I will do for them. I will make 2 small pairs of clothes, pants, coats, and 2 pairs of gloves and socks for them. And you will make 2 pairs of shoes for both of them." The cobbler said happily, "I will be very happy if I can do something for them." The story of the cobbler and the 2 dwarves. After everything was ready, one night the cobbler and his wife arranged the gifts beautifully on the table. That day, the cobbler and the cobbler did not cut any leather to make the shoes. The cobbler and the cobbler's wife hid behind the table to see what the 2 dwarfs would do after receiving their gifts. Exactly at midnight, the 2 dwarfs appeared. When they arrived, they could not find the leather cut for making shoes. Instead, they saw beautiful little dresses, pants, shoes, etc., arranged on the table. At first, the 2 dwarfs were surprised to see the things. Then, when they realized that the gifts were kept for them, they jumped up and down with joy. They liked the gifts so much that they started wearing them in the blink of an eye. As they wore them, the 2 dwarfs sang with joy, "My Lakshmanta son is wearing clothes. I will not do the work of a cobbler anymore." They jumped over chairs and benches and went out through the door, singing and dancing. After that, the cobbler never saw the two dwarfs again. Even though the two dwarfs did not come to make shoes, the cobbler did not miss a single moment of his work. He started doing his work with all his heart. Because of this, his condition improved even more. The cobbler and his wife spent the rest of their lives happily ever after.